This Friday, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back to switch things up in Disney's Freakier Friday.
Totally. Yes.
It's an absolute riot.
Woo!
And the only movie that can be described as
So much weirder than the last time. What last time?
it's the frequel
You ready?
we've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays.
What deeply out of touch old person came up with that?
You did.
Wow.
Don't miss the comedy event of the summer for all ages. Disney's Freakier Friday in theaters this Friday. Get tickets now. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
It's Wednesday Addams. I see you're trying to distract yourself from your own banal thoughts. Let me help. Here's a recording thing made of my latest root canal.
Wednesday, Season 2, begins August 6th, only on Netflix.
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon. You're listening to episode 77, A Conversation with Jim Fuda. This week on Criminal Mischief, I wanted to introduce you to Jim Fuda. He's the executive director of Crime Stoppers of Puget Sound. Now, I first met Jim when I was researching and writing the Shadow Girls podcast, which is a deep dive into the Green River Killer investigation, but from the perspective of his victims, 49 young women and girls who were murdered by the serial killer Gary Ridgway. I interviewed Jim because he was a young beat cop patrolling Pacific Highway for the King County Sheriff's Office in 1982 through 84 when the GRK's murder spree began. And Pac Highway was a place where Gary Ridgway would pick up girls and young women from the Strip and kill them. Here's a clip of Jim from the Shadow Girls podcast, which dropped in January of 2022.
I was a beat cop. I worked the airport Strip. I knew a lot of those girls that were victims. We had a different perspective then. Yes, they were called prostitutes. Yes, they were working together, most of them with pimps, but we didn't understand the philosophy of these girls as trafficked victims now has changed, has evolved, and that a lot of these girls, if they could be doing something else, they would be. That is some of the perspective that has changed from the time I was working the street.
Back then, the directive was get them off the street, push them somewhere else. We don't care where they go. We just want them gone. And that was the mindset of the community. How has that changed, especially because you knew the victims? And I'm sure they were like, they called you Jimmy. I mean, how can you not? That's like so sad and sweet at the same time. Because they knew you were a cop, right?
I'm in full uniform in a marked police car. Yeah, they waved to me. In fact, that was the idea back then. Move them along. I mean, there were times that there was 100 of them out there on a warm Friday, Saturday night, and we try to push them along. And there was one girl, I can't remember her name, but I said, so I would say, "What are you doing here?" "I'm getting ready to go use the phone." "Where do you live?" "Tacoma." And I say, "There's got to be 3,000 phone booths between here and Tacoma. Why this one?" I'm just out going to go meet a friend. We go through the game, and I say, "Come on now, let's move it on." One of them would joke with me that she is exercising. I said, "You're not exercising in those stiletto heels." And she'd say, so the next night you'd see her out there in a pair of satin hot pants and tennis shoes. And what you'd see is she'd start jogging, I mean, almost a comedy kind of thing, but we got to know them, got to move them along. But what we didn't realize then, like what's happening now, is that they were being watched. They had their pimp that was, And I don't think it was for protection. I think it was for, that's my money source and they're not going to screw me. And I'm paying attention to them. And a lot of those guys, those pimps had more than one girl that was out there walking. I remember that after the first 5 or 7 girls were found in the Green River, they gave us a photo, like a montage, a printout. And I remember telling one girl that I knew her as Wanda Mercury. Turned out her real name was Kaysan Lee. And I showed her these pictures, and she used to call me Jimmy. And I would talk with those girls, and a lot of them were filled with some pretty good information. But I said, look, 2 of these girls could be your sister. And she says, oh, Jimmy, he's not going to get me. And she pulls out a little pocket knife. And she was like Bones 19 for, I don't know how long, till they identified her.
That's what's so powerful about a case like the Green River Killer investigation, because it left its mark on so many people in the community, including Jim, who would never forget about his time as a beat cop and his conversations with the girls on the strip, especially Wanda Mercury, whose real name was Kaysan Lee, but who for decades would only be known as Bones 19, a young girl who he didn't realize at the time was being sex trafficked, even though he was a trained police officer. But he didn't understand back then how Kaysan Lee didn't have the ability to just leave that life, that it wasn't a choice. And that understanding is what fuels Jim's passion for helping people and would ultimately lead him on a path to Crime Stoppers of Washington after he retired, where he leveraged his experience to help combat human trafficking on a local level and then with Crime Stoppers Global Solutions. In our recent conversation, he talks about this path and what he believes everyone should know about human trafficking and the importance of being aware of what's going on.
Okay, great. Hi, Jim Fuda. Oh my gosh, it's been a while. It's so good to see you. And for my audience who may not be familiar, Jim was featured on the Shadow Girls podcast. You were so kind to give me your time and talk about your experiences of being basically a beat cop, back in the 80s, on Pack Highway. And so, well, why don't we start off with you introducing yourself, kind of your illustrious career and how you're into battling human trafficking in all of its forms.
Well, how it started, like I said, I was the youngest King County Sheriff's deputy they ever hired. I turned 21, got discharged from the military, and was hired in a 10-day period. So I joke to this day, I'm glad they hired me, but no one should have hired a young 21 wild one at that age. But I learned a lot, opened my eyes to a lot of things. So I was,
and I've actually seen not to cut you off, but I've seen photos of you in the 80s, and you were kind of a stud,
Yeah.
Not to say that you're not now. I'm just saying, you're the silver fox now, but back in the day, being 21, I mean, that you must have been like wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then suddenly being thrown into this really serious job, right?
Yeah. It was really I love my career. I'm one of those guys that of course we had good and bad days, but it was like one of those things that I never really worked a day in my life, if you know what I mean, because I was actually really passionate about that and helping people and seeing all these different situations to make sense out of it, and then pass it on to detectives if that's what needed to be done. It really felt like a career of public service. And I did 33 years. I did my last 15 were in special operations, and that was only because I was a hostage negotiator. I got promoted and I went into special operations and spent my last career there. I always joked it was the big boys with toys, but that's where I learned to do a lot of different things. And
Jim went to work for Crime Stoppers in the mid-2000s. Crime Stoppers is a nonprofit where people can anonymously come forward with tips, which they then pass on to law enforcement. If that tip leads to an arrest and charges, the caller can receive a reward of up to $1,000. But something novel happened in 2017 that would be a huge game changer. Instead of just being able to call Crime Stoppers with an anonymous tip, tipsters could use an app on their phone.
In November of 2017, we started using an anonymous tips app where citizens can report crime anonymously without fear of retribution from the bad guy.
This was in November of
2017.
Wow. So you guys were taking tips. I mean, Crime Stoppers has been going on since like what? The
80s.
The 80s, right? with the Reagan era, right? And so it took until 2018 to say, hey, people might be more willing to talk to us if they're not, because that's a real thing. Retribution for coming forward is a real thing, right?
Yeah. Well, we always had the 1-800-222-TIPS line, but I'm telling you, this generation doesn't trust the telephone and talking to a real person. So we learned right away, our tips quadrupled overnight and our arrests more than doubled. Because we're in the gaming generation. I joke, I can't get my 17-year-old granddaughter to talk to me on the telephone, but she texts me back in 30 seconds. So it's a whole new form of communication.
That's really cool because you're experiencing that real time and bringing that knowledge into Crime Stoppers of like, hey, we got to, our tipsters are now, what is it, Gen Z, right?
Yeah, a new generation of communication. And it's funny, we're even finding, like, let's say with police and fire dispatchers, they get the equipment. They have to be they're being taught basic communication skills to actually talk to people when they answer the phone. So things have changed that way.
So the younger generation who are now becoming firefighters and police officers who don't like to talk on the phone either, they're having to, am I reading you right here? Is that what you're saying?
They're being taught communication skills. They're being taught de-escalation, things like that. That a lot of that came natural to us old timers. So things have changed a little bit in this last decade and a half.
So the younger generation they're having a hard time communicating face to face over the phone. They prefer to do it over text, over email. And so that's having issues with de-escalation. And, because I'm sure your skills as a negotiator, like what you said, it kind of comes naturally, but you've also been trained. What is that like bridging the gap?
It's melding that some of the training and stuff has changed. Like I said, especially with police dispatchers and fire dispatchers, is that the emergency services side of that is that they're talking to people in crisis right then and there at that moment when they're calling and asking for help. So it's that group, like I said, they get the technical side of things. Much easier to train them in that. So they're doing more of the communication skills, the oral communication skills in their training.
Yeah. So for the older generation, it's harder with the tech. For the newer generation, it's harder with the communication.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've always been curious about this with you. Like, where does your passion come for the human trafficking? And I mean, you have been, okay, you go from this, I mean, you're a local police officer. It's not, and now you're international, you're global. I mean, your world has really expanded over the years, right?
Exactly. And here's how that happened. It came with that tip app and having already worked overseas, knowing you're dealing with corruption. And corrupt cops, corrupt politicians, is that I decided to take that app overseas. So and the beauty is the only reason I started in Bosnia is because that's where I had trusted cops. I'd worked there for 14 months. So I had one of a trusted commanders bring 4 countries together, 2 outside the EU, which was Bosnia and Serbia, 2 inside the EU, which was Croatia and Slovenia. I went back, did 1 press release and 1 presentation and had 47 tips in a week. So people want to talk, they're just afraid to. For more than just retribution from the bad guy, but from from corruption.
Yeah, from the supposed good guys.
Right.
For people who don't know anything about Crime Stoppers International, how can you break this down so they can understand what you're doing?
Okay, that's a good point. Crime Stoppers is actually you look at it as we're a triage between the police, the public, and the media. I have detectives call me and say, Jim, I'm getting no tips on this. Can you blast it out to your media contacts? I do a quick blurb. They air it, and hopefully we get some anonymous tips in on cases, and it works. Conversely, citizens know something, give us tips on something. We can filter those down to most agencies, right down to the investigative detective. So, and my local program services about 4.2 million people in 57 different police agencies in 4 counties.
Wow,
so,
in Washington State.
Yeah, in our area, yeah. So, but anyway, we took that concept. I picked 7 crimes human trafficking, terrorism, illicit trade, arms dealing, drug smuggling, cybercrime, and bank fraud. All corruption based, all crimes without borders. But when we went back and did that, we learned two things. Is that one, a local program can't sustain it. And two, Bosnia was not the place to start. Bosniaks, Muslims, Croats, Catholics, Serb Orthodox, they call them different governments, but it's cultures. If one likes it, the other two don't. So it took us 2 years to build those trusted relationships. We moved it to Serbia, which is kind of the kind of a hub and most progressive country in the Eastern Balkans, and brought it there to the point where I actually had trusted Serbs here February 2020 to learn the operational side of things. And 3 weeks later, COVID hit. So I've been back 4 times. I'll be going back in the next couple of months. But in the meantime, Moldova came to us because they have such an influx of refugees that brings a whole new level of corruption that they're a country of 3.5 million. They're overwhelmed. And having been to a refugee intake center in Chisinau and watching what these poor people are going through, these refugees, to no fault of their own, is heart-wrenching. So I said, of course. And the cool thing about Moldova, we already had a trusted guy there. We knew him from a Crime Stoppers program, a younger retired officer that is extremely well connected with his country, decision makers, and with the politics there. So that's moving forward very smoothly.
I have a friend who coaches his twin daughter's baseball team, and he's been doing that since they were really little. Nothing gives him greater joy than being a part of his girls' baseball journey over the years. But these days, kids' sports can get really expensive. So he had a great idea. He launched an online Shopify store to sell gear, merch, and basically he leveraged his sports knowledge and experience to build relationships with customers. What's cool about Shopify is that they're a place for everyone. An online platform that supports the next generation of entrepreneurs like my friend, but also the world's biggest brands and everyone in between, which means Shopify is helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. Shopify POS is your command center for your retail store. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify has everything you need to sell in person. And with Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. You can track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock, which means you can connect with customers in-line and online. Shopify also helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. You can also get hardware that fits your business. You can take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point-of-sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Do retail right with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/mischief. That's MISCHIEF, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/mischief to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/mischief.
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
So if I understand you correctly, you had been doing Crime Stoppers pretty much since you retired locally. And you there was no Crime Stoppers internationally. There's nothing like that on an international level, right?
Well, there is.
There is.
Crime Stoppers is in 30 countries. However, the concept or the way we picking those particular crimes and combating just transnational crimes, not just in-country people, and especially in that part of the world, has not been done.
And what made you want to do that there? I know you said you had contacts in Bosnia, and that's kind of what made you start there, right? But what made you think, I need to do this internationally with these crimes?
You look at the big picture of the area I'm talking about. Some of these crimes start, especially like the human trafficking, starts in South Asia, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, goes through the Middle East, goes through Turkey, hits the Balkan route into Western Europe. I'm going to tell you a quick story that when I was in meeting with a Serb anti-trafficking group in downtown Belgrade. It was an obscure building because these people get killed. You know, they have to be very careful with how they do their work. And so I walked up a 3-story building, met with these people, and a woman starts to tell us, me and a partner I was there with, a story of 2 Syrian Christian girls that were sold at age 14, brought through the Balkan route into Western Europe, where they were raped repeatedly for 2 years. They had word about 10 days before this meeting we had with them that the girls were in Bosnia, and they were afraid to rescue them there because they had eyes on them, is because the borders were corrupt, and they were afraid that they would be arrested, the girls taken from them, or charged a bunch of money, or all three. So they had word that the girls were going to be coming to Serbia. And well, I met with them late afternoon, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, their agency rescued those 2 girls. And the woman telling the story starts to tear up. And I said, but that's a good thing, right? And she said, there was a 3rd girl. She was broken off in Bosnia, brought to Kosovo, strapped to a table where they harvested her organs to the highest bidder on the black market. They murdered her on a table. And they feel that was they were bouncing these girls around to different countries, and that they were going to meet the same fate.
Out of all the people that are human trafficked, how did they select these 2? How did this organization, was it the parents that came to them? Like, what was the backstory behind the rescue?
They did not share that. That was not shared with us at all, other that they had some informant that was telling them where they were and where they were going to be.
I mean, that story brings up, I was having a conversation with someone about the difference between, you know, there's sex trafficking, human trafficking, and you bring up the organ harvesting of organs. I mean, that's a traffic too. Can you describe the different, what it's called? What is the human trafficking, the sex trafficking, the organ donation, like how these things all interplay together?
Well, I think it's that's up to the trafficker line, and that's what I'm actually hoping to be able to break into, because these anonymous tips gives eyes and ears and a voice to the citizens, and not be fearful. So this is a tool around corruption. And remember, these traffickers, like I mentioned, start from South. They don't like each other. They have a whole different cultures, but they work partially together because of the money. I'm hoping that this actually starts a traffickers' war amongst each other, that they think whoever turned the other one in, and vice versa. I'm hoping, and plus the intelligence that we can obtain from some of these tips could be extremely valuable.
When people think of human trafficking, now that because you're the expert, it's great to be able to like really dumb it down for people because, you know, if you're living in America, it's like, oh, why should we care? There's so many things going on here. There's so much hate going on here. Like, it's so overwhelming to think about, because basically people are slaves depending on what it is that they can offer these traffickers, and they decide if you're a young girl or a young boy, you could be sex trafficked. If you're, you know, a worker, they take your passport away, and you could just be stuck in somebody's basement cooking for cooking and cleaning and being a slave in that way. How does this work?
Let me really dumb it down for you. And this is what I tell people is, this is a crime that's hidden in plain sight. And I ask when I give presentations, how many of you get pedicures? And most of them in our area, they're Southeast Asian nail salons. So I said, the girl working on your feet is younger. She doesn't speak to you. She talks the native language back to the owner. And you go back in 3 months, and there's a different girl on your feet. You are witnessing human trafficking. That person is not free to go. Someone is controlling them. They're paying off a debt to be in the United States, and a debt that will never get paid off. And let's take that a step further. How can a massage parlor be open at 2:30 in the morning and you can walk in there and get a massage without an appointment? You're witnessing human trafficking. It's not just the sex trade either. It's in a domestic servitude. It's in sweatshops. It's around us. And if people just need to be educated to the fact that some of this stuff is going on. And when I worked the area, the Green River Killer, we were not trained. We didn't know really what to look for. I thought, well, if this girl's so fearful, she's standing right here next to my police car. She can tell me. That's not true. Somebody is watching them, and they're being threatened that either their family or they're going to be harmed or something, that they're afraid to talk to us about. So you have to look at them as a victim now, and then you get a different perspective of what these people are going through.
And when did that paradigm shift for you? Because that's such a great point, because you're so passionate about it. And it's like you were in the thick of it with the Green River Killer. Like we talked about this in the Shadow Girls, about how you, what one of them had a nickname for you. One of the girls had a nickname, and do you remember us having that? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, that was the girl that I showed her the photo Xerox copy of the first 7 victims, and I knew her as Wanda Mercury, and I said, two of these girls could be your sister, and she pulls out a little pocket knife. She says, "Oh no, Jimmy, he's not going to get me." She was Bones 19 for years, and her real name was Kaysan Lee, and she was murdered and found as Bones.
And so that stays with you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So would you say that that's what fuels your passion, is just now thinking about back in the day, you thought that they could just walk away, and now you know better. You know that they can't just walk away.
Yeah.
And
and if I could say this, like I want to say, I can't be bullshit with this stuff now. I mean, I know what the truth is. I don't answer to a police chief. I answer to a board of directors, and we're able to do some things that especially with the technology, and we can get the information over to the appropriate people to follow through with the investigation and arrest. But it does mean trusted law enforcement. That's a key. That's the hard part, is building those rapports and knowing who's vetted and who can be trusted with those tips.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Is there anything else that you think that people would be shocked, like the organ harvesting? I mean, that's some like diabolical. Like, I don't think that people know how much that's going on. Like, I don't know how much that's going on until like I'm watching something on TV or I'm talking to you. You know what I mean? Like, how prevalent is that?
Well, the only one that keeps stats that I'm aware of, that I follow a lot, is UNODC, United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime. And remember, because it's underground like that, is that some of these could only be intelligent estimates of what's going on. But it is a huge business. People are rich and willing to pay in different countries. The Sultan of Brunei, when he came here for the APEC conference, he brings along his heart. He had a bad heart. He carries his heart donor with him. He has a full setup in his plane. They operate for a heart transplant if he needs it, wherever he's at.
Wait a second. So the guy that's the donor that's going to die, because this is not a kidney that he's giving his heart.
Yeah. And
this person travels with him.
Yeah.
Is this real?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So these are what, value of life in different countries. It's thought of differently. And you look at some of it. Let's say I'm a poor farmer in Indonesia, and a trafficker comes to me, and I've got 3 daughters, and he says, "Look, I want to educate your girls, and we're going to take them and get them a job, and we're going to educate them, and we're going to send you some money every month." They send them money every month, but those girls are in a brothel, and they're in Surabaya, Jakarta, wherever. Their girls are told, you want to leave? We're going to go kill your family. Or I'm a poor farmer and I got 3 daughters and I'm saying, sorry, honey, the rest of us got to eat. You got to go with them.
So what can people that are listening to the podcast do to not contribute to, like you said, the massage parlors, the getting your pedicures? Like how can they help?
It's just, I think, be aware. It is hidden in plain sight, and educate yourself and report it. And you don't have to, even if you think it's nothing, download our free P3 Tips app. It's called P3 Tips. Free download your phone, submit whatever information. You can add photo, videos, audio to it. Hit submit, and we get it. We only know you by a numerical identifier, and we'll submit it to we have a task force now that here in Seattle with between the feds and local law enforcement detectives that are working these things. Who knows? That information could be invaluable.
So that they're working that for human trafficking on a local level?
Yep.
Okay, so there's a team of people that, so it's with the FBI and what is it with the sheriff's office or is
and Seattle and there's a nonprofit now called ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, is another very fine group. They're in 61 cities and they're globally. And once a year, Microsoft hosts an event, a conference every year, pays for everything to bring these people in together so they're all on the same page. But what it is, it's a group of investigators along with prosecutors. Internet technology is advancing so fast that the laws are not keeping up. AI now is making child pornography videos that is not even regulated yet. Disgusting stuff.
My gosh.
Yeah. So with that said, is that the prosecutors are seeing what's going on and they're trying to push legislation to get more laws as the technology keeps changing. So you got to tip your hats to these people that do this kind of work. It's in my eyes disgusting work, what they have to see and what they go through, and they're even giving a lot more mental health checks and things because of the depravity of what they're seeing on a daily basis. So they're doing fantastic work. And since the pandemic, internet crimes against children have gone up 43%, according to the Center for Missing and Exploited Children based out of DC.
People luring children in, is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Let's say you're a 14-year-old girl and I pretend I'm a 16-year-old boy, and you tell me all your problems, all that's going on, and with you and your whether it be your family, your schoolmates, whatever, and then I get you to trust me, and I say, God, could you send me a kind of an explicit, sexy picture? Once you do that, I've got you. I hold that picture up and I say, I'm going to want these coming, and they're going to be more and more explicit. And if not, how would you like your principal to see this? What would your mom say if she saw that? Teen suicides are up because of this as well. So it's not only the in-person stuff; it's what's happening, on the web. And imagine I portray myself as a 16-year-old, but hell, I could be a 47-year-old Hungarian for all I know, because of the internet. Is that when I lived in Banja Luka, I wanted to stream some American television. I couldn't do it with a Bosnian IP address. And I had a friend help me to buy a US IP address for $7 a year. Now you buy several of those in different parts of the world. How are you going to find me?
How do they find them?
It's an intricate network, and you really have to delve deep. And I tell you, that part goes way over my head. So that's why we've got these investigators that do this kind of work, and God bless them.
Like, how do they stop this with the kids? Do they sit down and have a conversation and say, hey, I mean, I'm sure parents are doing that already, but sometimes your kids don't want to listen.
And sometimes they're not. But the fact is that you got to talk to your kids about that. You're their parents. Control what they're looking at. Make sure their settings are set to private, location settings, their settings, whatever is on the net. But definitely talk to. There's nonprofit groups now of survivors of this, that young kids, that younger ones, and they're starting in the junior highs to go talk to them and say, it happened to me, it can happen to you. So that way it's more peer on peer, and their kids are more likely to listen. For more information on this, we have a 3-minute video out that explains how all this process works. And it's on YouTube, but you can also find it on www.csglobalsolutions.org. And if you want to put that, and I can send you the video, and you can attach it with the podcast, it'd be great if you're able to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Text me the video, and I will absolutely do that.
Okay.
I will absolutely do that. Well, cool. Well, Jim, it's always nice to catch up with you. It sounds like you're doing great work.
Thanks. And in fact, any of your viewers, if any of them have groups that they want a presentation on something like this, please let me know. I'll talk to. I'm blue in the face on this stuff to people, so they understand what's going on and how they can help support us, even if it's monetarily.
Okay, and that's through Crime Stoppers?
Yeah, they can reach me at james.fuda@crimestoppers.com.
We also have that link to the video in our show notes. Before I let you go, if you enjoyed the show and you have a minute, head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon. It really helps. And as always, thanks for listening. From Cloud 10, Criminal Mischief is a pie-in-the-sky production recorded in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. We're produced by Brandon Morgan and myself. Music by Soundstripe. I'm Carolyn Osorio, your writer and host.